So for those of you who don't know, Studio Dumbar is one of the most iconic design agencies based in Rotterdam. According to D&AD, they are third most awarded agency company after Apple and Pentagram. And their brand identities include Dutch Railway and Dutch Police and Van Gogh Museum and lots of other wonderful projects. And Liza joined in 2011 as a third creative director and took the Studio Dumbar's legacy to the next level. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation today, and I hope lots of people will have questions for Liza. And I'll ask mine first, and then we'll go to the audience Q&A section. So how are you doing, Liza?
Yeah, fine. A little bit nervous. It's the first time I do a live interview, but yeah, so far so good.
It will be okay. Do not worry.
No.
Are you in the studio right now?
Yes. It's 6 o'clock here. Most people are going home, but yeah,
Okay.
very few people are still around.
Good. Well, let's start from the very beginning of your career as a designer, as a creative person. I want to know, how did you hear about design and how you decide to do design? What was the first thing that made you think that that might be something I want to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah. Well, originally I'm from Greece, and well, where I grew up there. And actually, I was not aware of design. I mean, I don't even think I knew the word design. All I knew is that I definitely wanted to go to art school. My grandmother was a biochemist. My mother still is an artist, or she was amateur artist. And I had a feeling that I wanted to do illustrations, like medical illustrations. I applied to art school, and then they said, okay, go to a foundation course. And then I realized that there was more out there and not only illustration. And I was fascinated with typography because you tried out a lot of things, and I started I decided, okay, then maybe design and graphic design is more what I want to do.
So at that point, did you know that that could be a career, or was it like the
I knew that
hobby?
I knew that there was advertising. That's what I was aware of. That the things that I came across when I grew up in Greece was advertising. There were billboards. Actually, there was a movie theater that had posters. And they were still, and I'm not from like 1925, but that particular cinema was still hand painting all their posters, which is, I find, completely insane. But that's how I came across of what I understood was design.
Great. And then from there, from getting the first taste and studying it, when you graduated, did you feel like, great, that's what I want to do?
Yeah,
I got a job and everything.
Yeah, and then I started. Then I went into a graphic design course. Then I studied. I looked up everything I could find, designers, who was current at the time. But everything that I could get my hands on, I would go after exhibitions. But when I graduated, there was also quite a big recession. There was not a lot of work around, and I wanted to continue also studying. So I took that opportunity to take a year off. I did an internship at Studio Dumbar, and during that
all started then.
It started then. And then during that time, I also felt, okay, I think I need to study another 2 years. And that's when I moved to London. I was very lucky to be accepted at the Royal College of Art. And I moved to London to study there. It sort of gave me another 2 years to mature, but also to experiment further. I felt that that was really a great opportunity to have that extra time there. Sorry, there's a lot of sunlight here, but anyway,
Oh, nice.
that's good. It's
Oh,
okay.
lucky you. I think we are not so lucky with the sun today here in London, so
it's
really
right
jealous.
Here. So please come here.
We will actually. So yeah, Royal College of Art. So by the time you graduated from Royal College of Art, then you got a job and you kind of figured out what this whole profession is.
Yeah, I mean, after graduation, I wanted to return to the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
I had a taste of Dutch design, and I definitely wanted to return to the Netherlands. But I also felt like, okay, I'm now in London, but I cannot. I want to also experience what it's like to work here. So one of the first things I wanted to do was visit Pentagram, because that is sort of a temple for design, and I definitely wanted to see them, or what is it like. I was very, very curious. It was like you cannot leave the country without visiting a few of these key studios. But again, it was sort of right time, right place. When I went to meet them at that time, David Hillman, one of the partners at Pentagram, was looking for a designer, and I was really lucky. I think 2 months later, he asked if I could join his team. So
oh, wow. Was it like the big moment?
Well,
like, my dreams are coming true.
Well, for me, yes. And of course, when I told my parents, they were like, sure, that's great. You got a job, you know. I don't know what you're doing, but at least you have work. And I learned. I mean, I learned everything there. It is really, it was really a fantastic environment to learn, not only from the partners that were there, but also from the designers that were in the team, and from the whole studio. It is really, it's a family. Like once you go there, you still feel very much connected. You know, when you graduate from a college, you know, like, oh, where did you graduate from? Oh, I graduated from this college, and we're all still very much connected.
Do you remember any story from your life at Pentagram that, I don't know, you still remember, and it's like a warm feeling when you think about that moment?
Yeah, but I'm not too sure if that's a good idea to share. No,
there's
personal? A lot of, I mean, you know, I mean, we just had such a great time. I met such good people, and of course, working late nights, and then there's the fantastic pub next door, the Cock and Bottle. We spent a lot of hours there also. So yeah.
So how was it back then? Yeah. Was Pentagram very different in terms of like the type of the atmosphere that was there, the type of the work, the process, and what was so special about it from the inside?
Yeah, it's hard to compare from what it is right now, because obviously there's a lot of new partners. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are also more women partners, which I think is fantastic. At that time, there were only men, so I think that makes a slight, makes a difference. But what was it? It's I don't know. It was very much that everybody that was there, and I think that's everybody is there is really cares for design. It's all about design. It's nothing else, but you spend your whole day focusing on design. You don't. I really, and that you work in a team. It's not. At least when I was working there, and the team I was working there, there were two senior designers, and they really helped me along the way. I mean, Debbie and Annalisa, they were there and they really took me through the steps. Like, okay, this is how this works. This is how, and they guided me through my time there. So that was really important, but also with other people that I met there that now I still have a connection, that they started up their own studio, like Mucho, and I met the people, Alan and Ben, that started up NB Studio.
Yeah.
So yeah, you met. I think I also felt like I was there at a right time. A lot of these people just took off and did their own thing, and that was really, and we still are, and we're still in contact, and we still make the same stupid jokes. How can I say? Yeah.
So how did you decide to leave Pentagram? When you felt like, okay, that's enough, I need another stage?
Well, I wanted to move to the Netherlands. I also had a relationship with a Dutch guy. That helps, you know, an extra reason to leave the country. And that was all. I mean, yeah, I was there also for 7 years, and it was really, really, I think, the next step. I needed to take that. And that's, and so I looked for work, and I moved to the Netherlands and worked, and moved here. So that was.
So eventually you ended up at the wonderful Studio Dumbar that you already had some sort of experience with, being an intern. So how was it coming back after remembering as a student, as a young designer, and then now after Pentagram?
Yeah, I mean, of course, when you do an internship, you have a very, very different experience. Yeah, it is, when you're an intern, everything is extremely new. I mean, when I did my internship, it was a new country. I didn't know, I didn't understand the language or exactly the mentality or the directness of the Dutch. Yeah. And I was directly involved in projects as an intern, but of course you're involved up to a certain level. And when I joined again, you come in with experience. So I had worked for a while, but then again, I also see that when you start a job, and actually wherever you go, you somehow fall back to zero. And I'm not saying, okay, there is a sort of, you have a lot of experience, but you get this feeling like, okay, in a way, you're starting from the beginning because you're learning a lot. And I remember my first 3 months, I thought, this is hell. I'm never going to survive this place. I mean, I know nothing. What is identity? What is design? You know, like this sort of completely blank feeling. That I don't know, I hope that other people experience. I don't know, whoever's listening, you have the same feeling. But it's, okay, I'm starting again. But it's still, Dumbar was or is the way I experienced it years ago. It is really, again, similar to Pentagram. It is about design, but again, it's really a group, and it's really a working together environment. Contrary to Pentagram, we don't have like multiple partners. We're flat. I always say we're like a pancake here, and we all need to take our responsibility for the role we play. So whatever you do, it doesn't matter in what role you are, you have to be as good as you can be. So it doesn't matter. It really doesn't mean that if you're a creative director or if you're a designer or project manager, there are different levels to that. It's really, you have to be as good as you are. Because if one person is not as good, the whole team is interdependent. So we really rely on each other. It's not, it doesn't mean if you have a good creative director, everything goes well, and vice versa. If you have great designers, a crap director or a crap project manager, it just doesn't work. It's really, really a teamwork.
There was a really good quote from the book about Pixar that an average idea with a great team will become a great product, but a great idea with an average team won't be anything.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
I,
really about working together.
and how do you support that culture to, obviously it's part of it is being in a stressful environment, there are still deadlines, there are still responsibilities, there's hard work, but it's also very creative work, so you need to kind of always be creative, always come up with something new and fresh and not repeat yourself. And as you said, you need to be a team, so it's a lot of communication and kind of human behavior management. How do you help navigate that?
Yeah, you need to give people time and space, and for example, I would say I have a feeling for the direction we're going, and I'm talking about in the creative realm. I have a feeling of the direction we're going, but there's no I don't have a idea of what that outcome should be. So you need to go there. But how we get there and what exactly that answer is, I leave that open, and that means that you give room to all the designers to really to have their own voice. If I was there and told them make this and make it like that, that really limits. That is very limiting, and I think that's. It's not only limiting for the project, it's limiting for designers, it's limiting for the studio. That means that we'll end up relying on one person's idea. I mean, everybody is really talented, and I would hate to lose talent because of my ego, for example.
So how do you navigate when maybe the idea is not good or passing in the wrong direction? And you clearly know where they should go.
How do you navigate? Well,
so how do you give feedback? How do you, without, as you said, giving clear instructions, kind of make sure
the instructions are always clear, but for example, if we're working on a project, we're working in a team. So there's always 2 or 3 people, two designers for the team and an intern that is there at the time. And in the beginning of the process, you need to give as much room as possible. If you see, okay, and you understand, okay, we're going in a direction that is not working or not quite there, it's always coming back and referring to the brief. Like, what is the question? You know, is this the right, are we answering it the right way? What is the thinking behind it? And if it's not matching that question, it's also saying like, okay, if this doesn't work, maybe look at something else. We're also in a team. You can borrow from the other designer. What is he doing? What is he looking at? That it's not this is mine and this is your, we really need to make the best possible answer. And with some people, you need to be extremely straightforward. Some people like to be, for example, I like best to, if somebody says, oh, you're doing great, I'm motivated to do even better. I have other colleagues that prefer to be told, yeah, it's not there yet, and that's how they're motivated to be better. So you need to always find that right balance, like how is the best way to talk to that particular person. And it takes time. I mean, it's
you
not
need
like
to understand the person first before.
Understand it, like understand the relationship. And there, I think, and it takes time, and sometimes it can take up to a year, and give that person that room. And I mean, if both people believe that it can work, that, then after a year, you can that person will feel comfortable and do probably their best work and do what they love to do.
I love it. And I love how, like, you don't have the one answer how things should be done. It's all about personal human relationship and taking time and understanding who is the person in front of you. I think a lot of time people forget that it's a very human type of thing. You still need to talk to people and know who they are before any work or any design or any business issues. Another question that a lot of creative directors have at the point when you reach kind of very high level in their career is what is their role in the company, and what you kind of lose your creative identity a little bit because you don't do anything. I don't know if you do much hands-on, but you're more like directing people, kind of, as you said, the ideas are coming from your team rather than from yourself. So each project that comes out, it's never yours. It's always done by a designer, and then you kind of start questioning what's your role.
Yeah,
did you experience that?
Of course, you always go through that, like well, not midlife crisis, but everyday crisis, like what the hell am I doing? Yeah, and for me, my role is exactly what I described to you. For me, it is empowering designers to find their way and to find their talking and finding the right answer. I feel for me, every day is about design, and that I don't necessarily hold the mouse or the pen or whatever it is, that I don't feel involved in the design. I feel I play a part in it, a part in the whole process. But yes, I'm not the one that actually makes that mark, but I know what my responsibility in that is. And to be honest, I really, the idea of me making that logo or that design, I think I'm a lot stronger or more effective in guiding and coaching and helping designers get to the answer that we're looking for than me to design, because I think you should always work with your strengths instead of working every day trying to improve a limitation. There's designers in the team that are 100 times better in designing posters and identities than I do, and that's what I mean about finding your place in what you do.
Do you ever have an urge to do something yourself? Like, oh, I really miss doing design. I just want to do like a side project. I don't know, design something for myself.
Yeah, to do side projects. Yeah, but more in the fact, like, for example, I have side projects I do. If I come up with whatever idea for a side project, then I do it. I mean, side projects, I also have a podcast station.
And it's an amazing one.
Type radio. That for me is a side project. I decided one day that there was no design poetry out there, and decided to write really terrible poems about design. But
wow.
Terrible when I mean literally terrible. Huh? It was not as a joke. It was only done after a few drinks, obviously.
I love it. Design poetry. Have you ever thought of publishing it?
Design rhymes. There are a lot of. I'm not going to perform one then. It's on Twitter, so I haven't done it for a while. Based on lyric, I don't know. Yeah, all sorts of these sort of activities. But actually, the visit, like making. No, it's more in the. No, it is not necessarily in the making, but more in the. For example, like writing, interviews, and it is more in that area that I think, okay, I miss it. I think I want to think of a project and do that.
So it's more creative thinking and
exactly.
exercising your brain.
Yeah.
Great. And let's talk about your type radio, which is super exciting. And I was just so impressed when I came across it that you've been running it for now, 15 years?
Yeah, since 2003. Yeah, I think almost 15
years. And way before the podcasting thing.
It was a year before. I think a year before when we started.
And
Yeah.
you never stopped, which is again very unusual for even radio stations and for podcasts especially. There are lots of people who started, get excited, do it for a couple of years maybe, and then kind of give up when they run out of ideas or topics or whatever. But you kept going, and
you kept going.
Yeah. So first of all, why and how you decide to do that, and what kept you motivating going through all these 15 years?
Yeah, we the idea started with underwear. It's a underwear. Sounds like weird. It's a foundry that is. It consists of 3 people. Akim, who's based in the Netherlands, in The Hague, Bas in Amsterdam, and Sami, who is in Finland, in Helsinki. And they were invited to talk at Typo Berlin, and they had this idea, oh, why don't we do a radio show? So they, actually, I had never met them. I had just moved to the Netherlands, and they said, oh, we want to do this radio show. We know you can speak English. That was a great criteria. Well, and you're a designer. And would you like to join us to do this radio show? And there's also Donald, who had some experience, also a designer based in Amsterdam. Like, you would be the host. And we said, okay, why not? Never had met Donald. As a kid, I would love to have these sort of amateur radio things, like record on tapes and make these radio shows. I was an only child, so I talked to myself most of the time. And so I went, so we said, why not? And basically we went to Typo Berlin, selected all the speakers that we knew or were well known, like Stefan Seigmaster and Peter Saville, for example. And we said, okay, we're going to ask them questions, and just record it. And it was then, it was live on, we had these mini, little radio stations, and it was an FM, we had this FM, in Germany we could like rent radio space and broadcast like in 500 meters around the location. So we went there and we asked people to do the interviews, right? And we had zero experience. This was broadcasted around the area. And we're sitting, the first interview, Stefan Seigmaster, we had our questions ready and whatever. We did the interview, it was broadcasted live. And of course, we forgot to record the whole interview. So we did the whole interview again. It was like rule number 1, record the interview. We didn't record that. Anyway, so we did that, and we went, and it was broadcasted, and everybody said, oh, it was live streamed, and everybody said, oh, can't we, we'd love to listen to the interviews again. So at that time, we just uploaded the interviews, and about a year later, we heard about podcasting, and we're like, what is this? Do you have to pay for it? What do we have to do? This is like a new thing. And then Akim went, researched it further and said, okay, we need to change this into a podcast station. And then since then, we travel to conferences and we interview as many people as we can. The last 2 years, it's been relatively a little bit more quiet. We've been quite busy with all sorts of things, but we continue because we want to give a voice to design. I mean, you can see a lot of magazines, you see a lot of visual input, you see, Instagram, you see work, but having a voice and hearing what somebody sounds like, and we ask all these awkward questions, do you love me, or do you steal? Are you religious? And there you can really get a feeling of who the designer is and what are they like.
Yeah, I love it. And when I discovered this gem, I realized I have lots of episodes to listen to. So I'm going through the favorite ones, and now I'm kind of going through them one by one. And I really enjoy your conversations and how you kind of interact with these people that you read about, that you follow, and there are lots of the people that I know and my friends on those podcasts, Malcolm Garrett and Paula Scher is there, and Ilya Ruderman. I think there are a lot of very familiar and very dear to me people. So it's always good to hear kind of them talking about the work they love and their lives. Yeah. So definitely keep going, and I think you are definitely giving a good example to everyone about not kind of giving up. Was there any point during these 15 years where you were like, okay, maybe I'm tired of this?
Yeah, every year.
Every year. So what keeps you going?
Yeah, because we're a team of 5, and then one of us says, "Oh no, I don't want to do this," and then we're like, "Oh, but we went this far, so another year." So yeah, so we keep going.
So who do you want to interview that you still haven't interviewed? Is there the number one person?
Number one, number one. I mean, we have a huge wish list, and actually, there's a lot of Dutch people that we still need to interview. I mean, we're Dutch based, but I think we've interviewed more international designers than Dutch designers. I mean, for example, Karel Martens, Jan van Toorn. I have no, it's on my phone. I have a long, I have a long list.
Oh, great. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think there's definitely a place for good design content, and it's always good to hear people's voices behind their work, as you said. So let's talk a bit more about Studio Dumbar and what you do there.
Yeah.
So first, a question about kind of being such a legendary studio, being awarded many different types of awards. What do you think makes it so successful now and keeps it successful?
Difficult question. Yeah. Whatever answer I have, it will sound like we're bragging or something. But what we have maintained is continuity. Like sometimes when you see a studio that is, for example, Studio Dumbar was led by Gert Dumbar. He started the studio, obviously, and approximately 15 years ago, he retired from the studio, and but the studio was able to also continue. So it wasn't reliant on a key figure, but we continued also in a philosophy and mentality, and that the mentality being what we talked about earlier about empowering the designers that are here. So there's always a young group of designers with their own point of view. That means that every 7 or 8 or 10, depending on however long people like to stay, there's just a new wave and a new way of looking. The other is also maybe on our approach to the projects, but I'm sure every studio will say, for us, it's very important to really, when we're designing an identity, to really understand who we're designing for and really get to the core and find a pure answer. But we continue that mentality. We always say pure, simple, and powerful, and that's what we always look for in our work.
Do you have any other rules, like inside the agency, of, I don't know, the types of behaviors you expect from the designers, or I don't know, anything else that keeps it consistent?
Behavior, I mean, we have I do not even want to talk about behavior. Everything is possible.
Okay.
Everything is no behavior, but I think
how do you have fun in the studio?
How do we have fun?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm now seeing a few people sending messages from the studio that say we're not allowed to play soccer in the studio. Yes, that's very true.
So there
not
are
in
rules.
The studio. no soccer in the studio. Yeah, because we cannot play soccer in the studio. Anyway, yeah, well, yeah, well.
So what do you do for fun in the studio? I don't know. Is it like Pentagram, going to the nearest pub? Is it, I don't know, doing something crazy creative together?
Creative, yeah. I mean, all our day, yeah. The days are all creative, but I mean, we do go out. We spend a lot of time together. We go out. Well, I wouldn't. Yeah, drinking maybe is something that we do a lot together. Um, yeah, yeah. I, I don't know. We spend a lot. I mean, we're a small. I mean, we're not 150,000 people. I mean,
Yeah.
we are a small group, so yeah, we spend quite a lot of time in work, out of work. Yeah, just typical. I think I cannot say that we do something very particular to other people. I see now more messages. Yes, a lot of drinking, Stan. There's a lot of drinking. I see that message.
Well, Netherlands are famous for its wonderful beer culture and in general relaxation. So I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And in terms of your style, you're always kind of described as a typically Dutch design agency, and that you have this Dutch style. What do you think about your style as a studio, as well as do you think that design studios should have a style?
Yeah, not necessarily. I think that is, no, I don't, I mean, yeah, that is really up to them. I mean, that's not for me to say. There are some studios that definitely have a very signature style. Like, you know, when you go there, you will have that, that signature. I'd like to think that we don't necessarily have one way of answering a question, but it's also hard to say because I mean, I'm talking from inside. I think inside out. I mean, outsiders always, you know, probably will say, yeah, this, like you said, this is very much Dutch design. Or a lot of people always make a comment that we use a lot of color. I don't know where that got. It's not my choice. I mean, if everything could be black and white, I would be happy with that. But you know, that is also because we the power is given to the designers in terms of how they look at things. Therefore, style, if there is a style, is also determined by the way that the designer is looking at a problem. And of course, you know, yeah, of course, looking at it has to match the question. We don't impose whatever we want if the question, you know, it's not, we're always answering to the brief and not, I like this style and because it's that style, I'm going to make you work with it or use it. So
do you have any particular things that you know that you won't do as an agency in terms of also kind of visual representation and taste, I suppose? We spoke to Mirka Borsche, and as you know, Mirka's style is very distinct and his studio has very particular angle to every single job that they do, and they're quite proud of that. And they say that's their taste rather than style, is just what they like. So that obviously influences the types of clients they attract as well as the types of work they do. And in that sense, for example, would you ever be able to do something in Mirka Borsche's style, which is very much out there, or that's not?
If that is the answer, if I mean, of course, never. I wouldn't say copy the style, but if this is the answer to the question, then I'm more than happy that we explore that. I don't want to limit our output to purely style. We always look at that question and see what is that right answer. I think that is very, very important because we have a diverse group of clients, and identity. I mean, we are what we do is focus on identity and creating an identity for a brand, for the client, and that has to reflect them. It's a reflection of you. Like if you came to me and said, design my identity, I have to reflect who you are. This is who you have to be in the world, and not how I or we or my, my colleagues are saying, oh, this is and because that's what we are always looking for.
Great. So we will be taking questions from the audience now. So everyone who's watching and listening us, start thinking about the questions and writing them in a comment section, and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible. And while everyone is thinking about their questions and writing them, I'll continue a conversation about the style. And what do you think is the modern Dutch style? I think I have a lot of questions that people usually ask me, because I was born in Russia, whether there is like a Russian design style and what does it mean? So what is Dutch design for you?
Yeah. Oh my God. These are the trick questions. Dutch design. Yeah, I think it's a mentality. I think there's a playfulness to Dutch design, and it's always looking at things like a little bit sideways, always finding, and not in the, and when I say sideways, and not in the British sense, because there's always that sort of smile in the sort of British word, but it's more, there is, it always asks a sort of question. It's a play, or yeah, it is never, it is what it is. There's a very, the other thing is that there is also, it's very much connected also to the personality, I think, of the Dutch. It's a lot of the times you see work that's very open, it's clear. It is. I find it always a very hard question when you're in it and not out of it. But I think it's that. Yeah, it is more the clarity and that like slight different perspective.
Brilliant. So we have a couple of questions popping up. So there are a couple of questions about internships. Do you take interns, and how to become an intern at Studio Dumbar if you're a student?
Of course we take interns. Actually, almost everybody that has that's in the team, and when we talk about designers, were former interns, and for us that's really important. So out there, please join. And the internships last for a 3-month period. And you can just apply. You just send an email. You do not need to send a letter of 2,000 pages. Send a short email, and with the months that you would like to do an internship, and a PDF or a link to your website. And then there is a team of 3 people. Eric, Marijn, and Bart will look at your portfolio, and if it goes well, they'll invite you for an interview. If you're abroad, you just do the interview over Skype. If you're here, then it's in person, and then they will offer you, hopefully if all goes well, offer you an internship. And as long as you're studying, or if it's 1 year after your studies, and it's paid. That's also very important. Paid internship. Nothing for free. We don't do that.
What are you looking for in interns?
Again, I think we are looking for experiments. I mean, we're not looking for one way of looking for doing. We're looking at process, skills. Motion, I think, is very, very important. I think that's something that we're always, like, if you have some affinity to motion, that would be great, although you will learn a lot already here. But you don't need, we don't want, we're not looking like we want to see 100 logos. That's really not necessary. I mean, you come here because this is a place to learn. We don't expect you to know everything, and to just be yourself, and and that's it. Yeah.
Great, brilliant answer.
Yeah.
So the next question, what was the most difficult identity to create and why?
The most difficult, well, every time we do a project, we're like, oh, this is difficult. This is, but I mean, for me, one of the identities that marked me, marked, it sounds weird, like as if I was painful. Maar Alzheimer Netherlands, I think, was one of the hardest projects. The question for Alzheimer, I mean, it's a foundation in the Netherlands that raises money to support Alzheimer patients. And we need to design an identity that is for this foundation. But you, on the other hand, there is Alzheimer's, there's a disease. So it was finding the right balance to design an identity for the foundation, but in a way partly reflect the subject matter. But in doing that, without being extremely negative, we need to find also optimism, although there's not a cure, because this is a fundraising organization. And that, I think, was the hardest part, trying to find the right balance. So that was the hard part, project.
Great. Next question from Mr. Hatton. What brand would you like for, on, and why?
I'm losing you I can't. Oh, if we have a drink line. To be honest, you would say, yeah, what I most enjoy is when we work for brands that are relatively unknown in the market, that they still have not been designed. There's whole areas. If you say, I'd like to design this cultural center, if you look around you, there's a million people, a million beautiful dance posters, a million of these. I mean, of course, that is, I mean, it's great to do this work, but on the other hand, designing for a client that is in an area that nobody else has designed or doesn't have such you would say not so sexy, for example, I think that is a fantastic challenge. Approximately 4 or 5 years ago, we designed an identity for a company that lays cables underwater. And yeah, this is not like, this is the first thing you say to your friends, like, oh, what are you doing today? I mean, most people say, yeah, I designed, I don't know, whatever, this, I don't know, chocolate shop, whatever. I mean, or, and then you're saying, yeah, I designed this, they lay cables. Yeah, and then that's the end of the conversation. Nobody really cares. Huh? But if you take that design further, yeah, take it one step further from what, I think that is really, really exciting.
Wonderful. Okay, next question, Bernia. How do you keep design fresh without following trends blindly?
Yeah, well, again, it's because yeah, I think it has to do with being aware of what is going on around you. And also the different designers have different ways of looking at design. There is not, like in the group that there is now, everybody has a different way of looking at design, and they bring in their own perspective. So, there is one person, I don't know, that is very much into typography, the other is into illustration. So you really bring that mix. So that always keeps you awake, because everybody sees something else and they approach it in a different way.
Brilliant. Next question. There are a couple more questions about internships, but I feel like we covered the topic a little bit. So let's talk about a question from Olia Rodina. How do you react on stealing in graphic design?
Stealing, I mean, if you literally copy one to one, yeah, I mean, that's not brilliant. But you also, I mean, stealing is very hard to pinpoint. We see so much around us. I mean, every day, everything. And a lot of the times, I mean, you do things subconsciously. Sometimes people say, oh, he stole that from that person. But maybe it's just they both saw the same sources. You don't know where that comes from. I mean, stealing, I think, is quite a hard word. I think all of us are inspired by each other. We're inspired of what happened in the past. You know, we are creating the future. I mean, if you're literally copying the work one to one consciously, I don't believe, of course I don't agree on that. But sometimes things happen that, you know, you see it in many instances. People release something, a logo, and then everybody says, oh, but it looks like that. I mean, yeah, this happens. This happens a lot. I don't encourage it, and you should do your research. But yeah, we're looking every day. You know, you can't tell. You know, it just goes into your subconscious.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think in any creative field, you're inspired by everything around you.
Yeah, if you see something and you think, okay, if that's my starting point, then take it one step further and see how you can find your way of interpreting that. So brilliant. That's what I...
Okay, let's take one last question, which is from Idependome. Liza, would you talk a bit more about your awesome book collection and how much the work from the past can influence your actual creative process? I like the question about books. I also seen that you love books. You try to put them in alphabetical order.
I'm telling you all, I'm an addict. Talking about stealing, I have considered it, but I have never done it. No, when it comes to books. And
do you have your favorite book?
Yeah, you know what it is? It's the last book is the favorite book. But recently, I've been looking. Well, I read about a few years ago that Playboy magazine came out with an edition, a Braille edition. Actually, you can see it on my Instagram feed, and I thought, wow, the idea that a magazine like this can exist without image, I think is brilliant. But it also said a lot about the type of content they had at the time in the 70s, because they had some, and 60s, they had brilliant writers. And I think about a month ago, yeah, one of my closest friends, Jana, she found the book on eBay and she bought it for me, and it's just definitely now on the top of the list about one of the most brilliant, in this case, magazines that I have. But collecting books is for me a way to relax. I go to a bookstore and I just forget everything and anything, and I'm purely just looking and just looking through books and I don't know. And it doesn't matter the subject matter. It's just if you fall in love with it, then this is it. Then I have to have it. But I also wait. If there's something I want, then I also will not spend €1 million. I mean, if you want everything, you can just find online, but you can also wait and find things at a reasonable price. It can be up to, I don't know, 5 years, 7 years, just waiting to find it.
I love that you have this passion for books. I think it's just incredible when you see people loving the physical things, even though everything is available in a digital. You like the touch of it. I think we're running out of time now, so okay. I'll ask the last kind of question and advice from you for everyone who is watching and listening us, and maybe they are offered to join an incredible agency right now as a creative director. Maybe it's one of the number 3, number 10 agencies in the world. And what advice would you give them? How should they get the most out of their next step in their career, and how to enjoy the most?
What do you mean by, like, as a designer, what do you do as a, like?
Yeah, if remember yourself when you were joining Studio Dumbar 11 or how many years ago,
Yeah.
7 years ago, and if you could give advice to yourself or someone in a similar position right now who is just about to join an incredible design company, what would you tell them?
Don't worry, after the first 3 months, it will get better. My first advice is always do what you love doing. If you feel that this is not the right, and that if wherever you go, if you feel this is not the right place for you and that you don't feel comfortable, then, take the next step. There's nothing, it doesn't matter. It goes vice versa. It's not only what they think of you, it's also how you feel in a place you go. So take the next step. That, I think, is very, go somewhere else. And always do what you love to do. If you don't, I don't believe in this, it's not like the gym, you need to sweat in order, we're going to get fit. You also have to love it. Like people that look great in the gym, that sweat, they love to sweat like that. So for design, if you're going to do whatever you do, you just need to love it. If you love it, then you go a step further. And I think everybody you meet along the way is very important. Don't burn your bridges. Don't go around shitting all over. Be nice to people. I think Anthony Burrell says it very nicely. I mean, just work hard, be nice to people. I think he has the perfect message, because actually it's all about relationships. And if you don't have good relationships, I mean, then you're sitting in your hole on your own. We're working always with people. So, and then try to enjoy it. Take a moment and also enjoy it. You've been accepted in a great studio you started up your studio, or you're taking the next step. Take a moment and say, okay, this is okay now, and then keep going.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, definitely work hard and be nice to people. I would advise everyone.
Well,
it's a great mantra. Thank you so much, Liza. It was such a pleasure, and I learned a lot from our conversation. So I hope everyone who joined us also enjoyed being part of this. And
thank you.
I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And thanks everyone for your questions.